Oh hi, is that the help desk? Oh good. I need to update some software on my computer, but it's asking for an admin username and password. Any chance you could just hop on the computer and enter those details for me?
Have you logged a ticket?
Well, no, I've not logged a ticket. Surely it's only going to take about 10 seconds.
I'm afraid we're very busy at the moment. How about I log a ticket for you and I'll come back to you within 5 days?
5 days? I just want to update some software. How frustrating is that? Well, there's a feature in Microsoft 365 called Endpoint Privilege Management. And guess what? That's the topic for today's video. But before we start, just a quick intro. My name is Jonathan Edwards, also known as the Bearded 365 Guy. I help businesses all over the world with the Microsoft 365. You can find more information at bearded365guy.com. Now, as IT people, we're usually stuck between a rock and a hard place. You see, the user account that you use to log onto your computer can either have administrator access or just standard access. Now, if it's got administrator access, you can do what you like. You can install software. You can change the settings of the computer. The sky is the limit. But unfortunately, giving everyone administrator access isn't very secure. You see, if your computer got hacked, it would mean the hacker would also have admin access, and they'd be able to cause maximum damage. Plus, if everybody in your business can do what they want, there'd be all kinds of software installed on every computer. There'd be no standardization. It'd be a bit like the Wild West. So us mean IT people usually give people just a standard user account. You want to install software? You've got to call the IT department. You want to update some software? Call the IT department. What about changing some settings on your computer? IT department. But there's a feature in Microsoft 365 that might just be the answer. It might help your IT team and your end users. This feature is called Endpoint Privilege Manager. Now, in a moment, I'm going to jump onto that computer behind me and I'm going to give you a demo. But before we do, let's talk about the all-important licensing. Now, unfortunately, Endpoint Privilege Manager is not available in my favorite Microsoft 365 product, which is Microsoft 365 Business Premium. If you want to buy Endpoint Privilege Manager as a standalone item, it will cost you $3 per user per month. Or Endpoint Privilege Manager is available in a product called the Intune Suite. Now, the Intune Suite does cost $10 per user per month, but it has lots more features than just Endpoint Privilege Manager. Now, you've heard me talking long enough. Now it's time for the demo. Okay, so I'm logged into the Microsoft 365 Admin Center of my test tenancy. So the first thing I'm going to do is go down to Admin Centers and Endpoint Manager. And then I'm going to go over to Endpoint Security, which is here. And I'm going to choose Endpoint Privilege Management, okay? And you can see I've got all these options on the top. I've got reports, policies, reusable settings, and elevation requests. The very first thing I'm going to do is go to the Policies tab, which I'm on now, and I'm going to create a policy. So the platform I'm going to create a policy for is Windows 10 or later. And then what kind of profile am I going to create? Well, I've got two options here. I've got Elevation Rules Policy and Elevation Settings Policy. Now, to begin with, you need to have an Elevation Settings Policy in place. And then, optionally, you can choose to add Elevation Rules on top of that initial Settings Policy. Now, all will become clear in this video. So I'm going to choose Elevation Settings Policy, and I'm going to click on Create. And then the very first thing I'm going to do here is name my policy. So I'll do that now. I'll just call this EPM Policy. Click on Next. And I'll click on the drop down from here. Now, let's have a look at these settings here. So the Endpoint Privilege Management, well, this policy is going to say that's enabled. And then I've got a default elevation response. And I click on the drop down here and you can see all the options I've got. Now, not configured and deny all request, I think has the same kind of results. Okay, so I don't know why there's two options there. We've also got another option for require user confirmation. Now, in this scenario, you really are giving the power back to the users. So basically, if they want to run an application or run an installer, they've just got to confirm with either their Windows credentials or put in a justification why they want to do that, and it should let them do it. So I'm not a fan of that option. Now, the first thing I'm going to show you is this one here, and it's require support approval. So basically what we're saying is anytime someone wants to run an installer or something that needs elevated access, they're going to have support approval, okay? And we'll look at how that works on a computer in a moment. We'll leave these set as they are, and I'll click on Next. We're not going to add any scope tags, click on Next. And for the purpose of this video, I'm going to say all users, all devices. You're probably not going to want to do that in your real world environment. You might have some groups going on. I'll click on Next, and I want to create that policy. Now, that policy is going to take a little bit of time to sync through to my devices. So what I'll do, I'll pause the video, and I'll come back, and we'll have a look at the virtual machine. Okay, so I'm logged onto my test Windows 11 virtual machine. I'm logged on as a fictitious user called Fred Finance. If I just go to my file folder options here, go to Downloads, you can see I've got a couple of installers. So I've got a Google Chrome setup, and I've got an Adobe Reader setup. Now, if I just double click on this as Fred, you'll see he doesn't have local admin. It's asking for the admin username and password, which Fred doesn't have. However, if Fred right-clicks on Chrome Setup, you can see we've got a tab now because that policy has come down to his computer saying Run with Elevated Access. So when Fred clicks on that, he's got a pop-up saying Request to open this app as an administrator. What's your justification? So he types something in here, something like this, and then he will click on Send, and it'll come up with working on it like this. Okay, and now we've got a confirmation. You'll be able to run this app as administrator after it's been approved. Okay, so I hop back now to the admin center. We've got our policy in here, so just go back to here, Endpoint Privilege Manager, and now we go to Elevation Request, which is here. Now you can see Chrome, setup.exe, publisher's Google, username is Fred, the status is pending. So what we do is we pop that out there, and there's all the information. So we've got all the information of the application, his justification, and we can approve or deny that. So if I click on approve that, I'm the IT manager, I look at it and think, yeah, Fred can install Google Chrome, put a reason in here, something like that, and then I'll click on yes. Okay, that has been approved. Okay, let me hop back to the PC now, which is here. Now you can see down below I've got a notification, and if I just click onto that, I've clicked on it, it's disappeared, but you could see there's a notification that was sent from the 365 admin portal. So if I go ahead now and run, right click on here, run with elevated access, you can see that I can now, you'll have administrator access to this app. I can now continue, and it will install that application. Okay, so I'm just going to close that, cancel the installation because I want to show you something else. But you can see the concept of how that works. Okay, now there's another way you can set this up. So let's go back to the 365 admin portal again, and we'll go back to our policy. And if I just click into this policy, and I'm just going to change it a little bit. So the configuration settings, click on edit, and we're going to change this from here to deny all requests. Now this might seem a bit weird, but hopefully everything will make sense. I'm going to review that, and I'm going to save it. Now again, I'm just going to have to pause this video while this takes effect on all the computers in the network. Okay, back to my test virtual machine. So this time I'm going to try and run the Adobe Reader installer. Right click, run with elevated access, and you can see that that policy now gives us this message. Our organization just doesn't allow us to run this app as administrator. There's no option to contact support or anything. It's just an error message that you can't do that. Now you might be thinking, well, what's the point then? Well, let me explain a bit further. If we go back to the 365 admin portal again, so our blanket policy says that we deny all requests. But what we can now do is create some of those rule policies that I talked about earlier. Now, I would need to create a rule policy for each different application that we use in our business. So if your business has got like a standard PC build, which I hope you have, you might have Office, Adobe Reader, Chrome, you might have a line of business application, and you don't allow anything else. So what you would do in that scenario is have an EPM policy that says we deny our requests, and then we're going to create rule policies for each application. So I'll go and do that now for Adobe Reader. Click on here, an elevation rules policy, click on create. I'll give it a name, just the name of the application. I'll click on next. We'll click on the drop down here. Now at the moment it says this, so let's edit the instance. We'll call this the rule name, we'll put that in there. It's called the Adobe Reader rule. The elevation type, so at the moment it's user confirmed, okay? So what I can do is I can say, well, users can update their own Adobe, but they've got to put a business justification and they've got to enter their Windows authentication, okay? So again, you keep it quite tight-knit. It's only these specific applications and users can do it themselves. It's not a bad strategy. Or what I can do, I can use support approved again. So again, a support thing would come into our 365 and your support team will approve it. Or it can just be automatic. So we can say any updates for Adobe, it's automatic, okay? For this example, because we've looked at the previous one of support approved, I'm going to keep it as user confirmed. I'm going to tick these two boxes here so I can show you. And now down here, so we've got the file name. So if I just go back to my VM here, close here, you can see that this is the file name here. So it's reader_uk_install.exe. Go back to here. Okay, that's the name of the file. Now a file path. So in this scenario, in this example, it's just the local downloads folder. But again, if you've got a network, you might have it on a network location that people can access. But for now, I'll just put in this location here. So go back to here. Okay, that's the path. It's just the local installer. Okay, the next setting is going to ask for signature source. Now, there's a few options here. You can use a certificate file in reusable settings. So you can upload your certificate files in here. I'll show you that option in a moment. We can upload a new certificate file, or as in this example, I'm going to select not configured. And when you select not configured, it's going to ask you for the file hash. So we need the file hash of this now. So how do we get that? Well, to do that, I'm going to open PowerShell. So PowerShell is open. Now, I've also got this exe file on my local PC, not on the VM. If you can see here, I've got this in this folder here. So all I do is run this file, get file hash, the location of the file, and the file itself. Press enter, and there you can see it's returned a hash. So all I will simply do is copy this and put it in here. Okay, and that's all I need to enter. So I will click on save. We'll click on next. Again, no scope tags, all users, all devices, and we will create that policy here. So I've got my base level elevation settings policy, and I've just created a rules policy for Adobe Reader. Again, let me pause the video. I'll sync these settings down to the virtual machine, and I'll show you what the user experience is like. Okay, we're back on Fred's PC. So now if Fred goes to run Google Chrome, if you right click, go to elevated access, that is still blocked, okay, because the default policy is to block all. But we've now got a rule for Adobe Reader. So what happens here? Right click again, run with elevated access. It's going to allow us to do this. So again, we can enter a business justification. Then we can click on continue. And again, it's asking for the security credentials because we want the justification and the Windows authentication. So we'll enter the PIN in here. And Adobe goes and installs. So that is Endpoint Privilege Management in Microsoft 365. So there you have it. That is Endpoint Privilege Manager. And there's a couple of different ways that you can implement it in your business. I really hope you've enjoyed today's video, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.